Hey, Zena, can you hear me?
I can, Jeff. Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. How are you doing?
Good. Let me just change my screen name.
That's fair enough.
Sorry, I had a computer malfunction. It was
Oh,
frozen.
wow. That's pretty mental. It's been a long time since we last seen each other.
I know. I want to say it's definitely in a pit somewhere.
Yeah, it was at the Village Underground, I believe, after the Idols gig.
Yeah.
That was like on one of those days when I had so many things going on that I briefly saw you. Just like, I've had so much kind of like going on that I just couldn't actually physically process what had happened during that day.
What happened that day?
Well, it's the launch of Independent Venue Week, so I'd been down at the 100 Club for their launch, and I'd also just been on Steve Lamac's round table with like Nadine Shah and Adrian Utley, and
Oh,
so
that was the day of that gig.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So if I was a bit like hyper, which I probably would have been anyway straight after the show, was partly because of yeah, having gone on like national. That's pretty much my first time on national radio.
First but not your last?
Definitely not my last. I know. I know. It's been like 3 times I've done Stephen Mac now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Regular.
4 times. Yeah, they may as well just furnish me and turn me into like a piece of furniture. Like most of the Bristol venues sort of thing.
Totally. Totally, Jeff.
Yeah, so how's life been treating you?
Well, that's a funny question to answer these days, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um, it's this year is very strange, I think, for everyone. Um, but for me, what have I been? My life is very different.
mm,
I think I'm usually living in Brooklyn these days,
yeah,
and I moved to the Catskills, or just outside the Catskills. My friend has a house here that was completely empty, and they weren't coming here, so they were like, "Just go stay there," because with the virus in the city
mm,
and living on my own, it wasn't like the best place to
yeah,
be cooped up for. So I'm here with a couple of friends, and I'm living a very different life than I would have ever.
yeah,
So with without the backdrop of great of illness and
yeah,
socio-political unrest
mm,
and a much needed fight for racial justice, um,
definitely.
my little microcosm of a life is like very country. It's like I live in the country now,
Mm,
so it's and it's the longest I've ever been stationary since I was in high school.
wow.
Ever not like I'm always. I mean, Jeff, I've seen you at Primavera, at
Yeah,
Glastonbury, like all over. So
you
it's
see, you should be chatting about like sipping like basically you used to see me like sprinting half the way across Bristol.
exactly.
Yeah,
So it's um it's been an interesting time, very
yeah,
difficult, but not necessarily for me personally, more difficult on a macro world sense. And it's
mm,
a really difficult time to be running a company
yeah,
because um, all of our staff at the record label have had to shift quickly to working from home. And
mm,
when you take away all of the conversations and the just your mental health suffers, I think, a lot from
oh,
not being
massively.
able to interact.
I mean, also it massively affected me because it took away a lot of my structure. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it does that, it makes you. I guess it made someone like me like about maybe look at life in a slightly different way, and maybe look at. So I've been in like for the past 3 weeks, I've been living in my parents' flat, which is where I am at the moment. So I'm due to head back to Bristol this some point, I think some point this evening, because of I've had builders doing work on my kitchen.
Oh, so you've
And
been taking the opportunity to get some work done.
yeah, well, I've been
Wow.
taking the opportunity to like, well, since they were doing the building work, I was like, right, okay, I've got no kitchen. so I've got to come somewhere. I was like, oh look, here's my mum and dad's down in Plymouth. It's been, I mean, like, it's been really good, but I've also been trying to work out my own space, sort of thing, and they've been really great because of having like the dog around, sort of thing. So there's been some periods when I'd be feeling really down, all of a sudden the dog will just come up and go, love me.
Oh, a dog.
Yeah.
I've been living with a dog. I've never had a dog before. I have a dog called Huckleberry. It's the best.
Yeah.
You have a really shitty day, and then you go and you sit on the couch, and you're like, that was tough. And then the dog just comes and sits down, and you're like, what have you been up to today? And it's like, bird.
Yeah.
Squirrel. Cool.
or my dog and my parents' dog case is that she'll come and wake me up in the mornings. So like every morning I've had like a kind of furry nose in my face. And
that's good.
But then it's been great because of like, it's meant that if I'm feeling a bit stressed out for some reason, then there's something which can give me unrequited love.
Yeah.
I feel like, so it's like, right, you give it a bit of attention, you know, kind of throwing sticks for her or something, kind of going out and kind of great big long walks and that sort of thing.
Do you think you would get a dog?
I would love to have a dog. I think it's whether I could necessarily afford it, and also the fact that I live in an upstairs flat as well.
Right.
Might be a bit of an issue. But I mean, also, like, I guess with the whole coronavirus thing, is that it's thrown a lot of everyone's plans up in the air, really.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so I was due to have like my first solo art exhibition.
Oh wow,
Yeah, in the island. I've done about 70 odd kind of oil paintings. Some of them are of musicians, and some of them are of like kind of abstract faces. Or I put like kind of like I take images on my tablet, like really big 10-inch screen sort of thing, and I'd go home and I'd quite often paint the people, but then I'd change the backgrounds, so I'd make them like into like really sort of trippy worlds.
I can't wait to see that. Well, when you eventually do it, you should also do like an online portion of it.
Yeah, we're looking into that because I'm having help with it from Connell Dodds, his wife.
Oh yeah,
yeah, man, she's been really great and proactive on it actually. And sometimes, yeah. So I remember speaking to Connell about it for a while because he wanted to buy one of my paintings originally, but I didn't know how to sell it to him. So I think that's quite often, you know, the creative difficulties knowing how to sell something.
Yeah, totally. That intersection between art and commerce, it's tricky. It's really tricky.
And it's working, but it's also like working out, like you have to split out like how long did you work on something, or like kind of what do you think the value is.
Whatever someone will pay for it, Jeff.
Yeah, that's true actually. That's kind of what it should be, but it's like sometimes there's always like there's always a weird creeping sense of doubt.
So can I ask you, would you be happy to share with me and the viewers how much you charged him for your painting that you sold to him?
I didn't sell it in the end, so I got too scared.
What?
Yeah, because it's really weird because it's like a sort of thing where I know your reaction is what, but then like when you don't know how to respond.
The dog.
Yeah. Well, it's been like if you don't always know how to respond to something, then you know it's like if I'll go through like I guess a lot of other people would do like the Manana effect. So there's been sometimes messages which I've been meaning to reply to for years, but I've never known how to do it. And sometimes I think that what I need, and this kind of happened recently, is to sometimes just have someone who just kick me up the backside.
Yeah.
They're like, you're doing it.
Someone that you're accountable to.
Yeah. I think also that I think having that kind of support as well has also been very, very important as well, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot. I mean, I haven't seen you for ages, and it's a very long time since I've lived in Bristol, but
Yeah,
got a lot of supporters, Jeff.
I know.
A lot of fans.
I'm a freaky git, to be honest with you. It's like you worked hard, and then I just turned up and just beat me.
Totally. It's good.
I mean,
So
like,
tell me, I want to hear more about what you've been doing for Independent Venue Week
oh
and
yeah.
Venue Mission.
Well, basically, that originally all came about because of I was working with for an arts organisation called Art and Power, who are like a disabled arts group, and one of the projects I was doing was like a fan letter art project, and so one of the people I wrote to was Tim Burgess.
Oh, cool.
You know, so I'd write them all, you know, individually, kind of creatively. So sometimes the shape of the letter would actually spell out the person's name, and it'd be like lots of different colours. And I guess the reason why one of the reasons I picked him, I mean, I picked other people like Leonard Cohen, Björk, Patti Smith, um, Jarvis Cocker, I think Saul Williams, kind of like a load of people who would list as kind of my heroes or had a kind of great influence on me. And each one of them, I tried to ask them, you know, what was their creative barriers. And I suppose that with the Charlatans, I talked about, did he use music? Did Tim Burgess use music as a therapy to help him cope with loss? And then like I kind of delved into my past and like kind of told him about things which I went through when I was like kind of really early 20s, and you know, the fact that I went through a huge kind of loss and grieving period, and I wasn't expecting at all to get a response. I was thought, right, okay, I'll scan this in because of like I think he's the only person who's actually seen his fan letter. So I scanned it in onto the office computer and decided to write, I'm going to bang this off to him, see if I get a response. And then about 25 minutes later, I got a full A5 or like A4 kind of letter back from him. Like
What, that quickly?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He got it, and then he read it, and then he was like, whew.
Yeah, about an hour later or something, yeah.
Wow, like, what a guy.
I know, to be honest, I feel like, wow, okay. And then, so then, obviously, he became ambassador one year for Independent Venue Week. And he just like messaged me saying, hey, do you want to do something really cool? So I was like, yeah. You know, if anyone asks me to do something creative or interesting, I'm like, yep. You know, like I'm nearly always now the first person to jump in. And yeah, so he got me to put on a show in Bristol. I had like Kayla Painter, Scarlet Rascal played. We were originally supposed to have Yama Wawashi headlining, but Yoshino had to pull out because she'd recently lost her dad, sort of thing, which is really sad. The whole night went really, really well, and I was DJing as well. So I've turned into a bit of like, yeah, that's another kind of thing I've added to my bow, is I've turned up to be DJing for like Green Man.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah.
I love that festival.
Oh man, it's amazing, isn't it? It's such a beautiful. That's one of the festivals I'm missing the most. Actually, is like the Green Man and then the Road.
Yeah, both of them.
Just because of like they've got such good atmospheres. But anyway, so I put on the show for Independent Venue Week at the Exchange, and yeah, the next year I get invited up for the official launch party at the 100 Club, which was the day of the Idols gig. And so like it's all kind of semi-accelerated up from there, really.
Well, yeah, well that day, that was the day that Tim, who's the president of Partisan Records, and I came over to see Idols, because obviously I'd seen Idols many times over the years. But you and I both know the journey that they went on to become the band that they are today.
Oh, it was a huge journey.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it just goes to show with them, like, how much hard work they put into it. And that it's not always, that it doesn't always come quickly, but it's about, like, kind of waiting and finding the right time with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was interesting because I remember, like, the last time I'd seen them was before I'd moved to New York, and it was before Brutalism.
Yeah.
I think I probably hadn't seen them for like a year and a half. I'd seen them at the Old Blue Last one night. And then I remember going off to South by Southwest the next day. So it must have been like a couple of years before that Village Underground show, which was November 2017.
Wow.
And I had been only working at Partisan full time I'd been consulting for them and a bunch of other record labels for a while, but I'd only been working for them full time for like 2 or 3 months. And I went to Australia for Big Sound.
Wow.
And when I woke up on the time zone difference, all of a sudden my boss, Tim, he'd heard Brutalism, and it was Dan Roberts, the promoter, had like come to New York and said to one of my colleagues, Andy, oh, you guys should check out this band Idols, this record Brutalism, it's amazing. And Andy was like, Tim, I think you'll like this. And Tim heard Brutalism, and I woke up and he was like, we have to sign this band. and my colleague Jeff, who runs UK and international out of London, he was like, Jeff, they're from Bristol, what do you know about them? And Jeff was like, I think you better ask Zena that. And then I introduced him to Mark Bent, and they had a meeting because Mark just happened to be in New York.
Wow.
He was on tour with Ausgear. It was when he was tour managing.
Yeah.
And then after that, the very day that you're talking about, when you'd done the launch at the 100 Club, been on Steve Lamat's Roundtable, and then gone to Village Underground, that was Tim and I had flown over from New York to see them again, and we went to what's that venue in Tunbridge Wells called? It's like an old public.
The Forum.
The Forum, exactly.
I've yet to visit that place, but that's definitely on my.
It's amazing. It's an old toilet, but it's big.
Yeah.
But it's big-ish, and like, honestly, having seen Idol's first ever London gig, a huge fan over the years, and dear friends with Joe and Bowen and Dev. I didn't know Lee and John that well at that point. I was totally blown away. And I remember saying to Joe after the show, like, what do you think about, how are you feeling about your London show at Village Underground tomorrow? Like, it's a big venue, and it's a big crowd. And he was like, Zena. And he explained it to me at how he's like, you just have to play for every single person in the room. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was like, every single person in the room. And he said something like, you have to work for the money that they've paid to get in.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
that's exactly the correct attitude team have. Because also it's like, I don't know quite how to put it, how I'd verbalize it, but it's like, if people are there deliberately to see a show, they want to be taken on the experience. It's like, it's like kind of like, whether it's like an emotional experience or whether it's like a kind of, I don't know, like a euphoric sort of thing.
Exactly. And they just totally blew the roof off that day, didn't they?
Yeah, they were great. That's the only time I've seen Dev stage diving.
I know!
I was like, what? I was like, oh God. I was like, I hope no one gets hurt. I think he did literally have to like nurse someone straight afterwards, I think.
I mean, they were amazing. And I remember I was worried it was going to be one of those like chin strokey, arm foldy London gigs, Yeah. And like I would say a third of that audience were industry because they were unsigned at that point. and the lights came on and no one moved.
Yeah.
Literally no one moved. Everyone was just like, what the have I just seen?
Yeah.
And then the next morning we woke up, got in a taxi and went to the lawyer's office and was like, right, let's get this deal done now.
Wow. Okay, that is pretty damn immediate, isn't it?
I mean, it takes a bit longer than that because
yeah, obviously, like you've got to sort out all the paperwork and the legal yada yada side of things.
But to get like, right, okay, what would it take to get this deal done? And I'll tell you something too. It was like, I think we were a little nervous that Americans wouldn't get it.
But they've exploded, haven't they?
Yeah, I'm wearing the T-shirt from their last America tour. See if you can see all the dates. I'll turn around.
Because like, wow, that is impressive. I mean, like, because also like they've got like also they've got like in the UK there's people those things like the AF gang have really been like kind of taking fire. In fact, there's a Scottish version of me called Simon Mason.
Is there?
Yeah. Yes. Oh god, Simon Mason is like he's like me, but he goes more internationally. So he turned up for half the Idols US dates on their last US tour.
Oh, have you met him?
Oh yeah, loads of times. Cause I met him quite a few times at End of the Road in Green Man, and he's like this big, kind of like he's got like kind of short hair, and he's got a massive ginger beard. Always wears like a trucker's cap.
Have you become friends?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were friends before the whole Idols thing.
Oh,
But the most random time I bumped into him, I was at Nick Cave in the Bad Seeds at the O2 Arena. Partly because of a very well friend who basically said, "Hey, do you want to come and see Nick Cave? I've got a ticket going free." So he booked out this like one of those corporate boxes, and I mean it took me about when we got in there, it took me about 45 minutes to calm down because I'm used to like a lot of smaller venues. So when you go into a venue the size of like the O2 and you haven't been into anywhere that big for years,
yeah,
I was like, okay, I was having to like I was almost getting kind of quite anxious.
Mm-hmm.
I was almost having to like kind of breathe, just taking it all in. While I was hanging around with some really incredibly rich people sort of thing. And I was like, because the same person also paid for all my travel and everything that weekend. So I was literally being, when I say spoiled,
yeah,
it was like really, really, truly spoiled. And after the show, I looked up to see this ginger beard hanging over the seats above me, and he was actually sat in the front row on top of me.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We were both staring at each other, kind of laughing.
That makes me wonder actually what you were saying about the anxiety from being in a different social situation than what you're used to, but with like a big venue like that.
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to be like when we get to go back to gigs and venues?
It's gonna be weird. I mean, like, I've had enough of someone smuggle me into their live stream on Friday. Because of
socially distanced.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just head over the mask, gloves. So I found it really weird because I've been trying to answer this myself really because I've just been employed by Kilimanjaro to write a few pieces for them.
Nice.
So like the first one, which was about the reaction to the renaming of Colston Hall, and the fact that I had a petition to change it to my name, and I was like, no, don't want it, just because it would be too big.
Yeah.
And it's also like it was also the same time as like the Black Lives Matters protest, and it's been like, okay,
it should be in honor of the people who passed through the city of Bristol and who.
Or maybe like not necessarily like even necessarily name it after a person.
No, exactly.
You can name it like I know that there was a rumor they were going to call it Freedom Hall.
That would be cool.
Or even just the hall. Something simple.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I did that, and I did the next one which I'm doing is just kind of like thinking about how are we going to get back to live music. Because I've seen that, I mean, in Bristol they've announced a whole load of drive-in gigs.
Have they? Who's playing
Yeah,
a big gig?
yeah. So it's like
Who's gonna do that?
I might do it for one of them, like,
For
but
which bands?
well, I'm a bit of a Skin Dread fan, so I might go and see Skin Dread.
Oh,
Yeah, because Benji used to sing in my favourite band when I was a teenager. Like I was a massive, massive Dub War fan. Um, and so I never really got to see them back in their heyday, but they did a one-off reunion show at the Fleece, which I virtually knocked myself out at because I head banged against one of the poles. I literally woke up the next day and my neck was almost like paralyzed there.
oh no, buddy, that sounds terrible.
But then the thing is, though, is that if you're going to go see a band who's going to remind you of a teenager, you're still going to inadvertently act like a teenager.
I think that's true, yeah. And those poles are really annoyingly placed as well.
Yeah, but apart from like the one that I always used to go in front of, partly because of it, he used to always break up mosh pits, but also if it was like a kind of acoustic show and everyone would be stood there quietly, I would only add an extra couple of inches to the thing which was already blocking them.
Right, exactly.
You know, so I could still be down the front, but literally be tucked in between the monitors.
The Fleece, those are the days.
Yeah, man. So I think that's where I would have first met you. I think would have been.
Yeah, I used to do the door.
Yeah, so that would have been like what, about 2003, 4ish.
Yeah, it would have been between 2005 and 2007.
Yeah.
Been there or at the Louis.
Yeah, man. The most of the times you let me into things as well. I know. Although it wasn't just you, it was other people as well.
all right. As long as there's a group of us.
Yeah.
That's a good, what is that? 15
years?
15 years ago. Yeah, exactly. A lifetime ago, really.
Yeah, and it's like really amazing that. Because I guess I feel like I should say this, but I feel really proud of like all my friends' achievements, and like I just look back and I've been using the time to reflect and just like going like, wow, you know, what an amazing group of people that I found myself, you know, inadvertently socializing with.
Yeah, you too, buddy. You've made, buddy. I live in America now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my transatlantic twang.
Of course.
But no, like I have always been really impressed with how you've used your time to become an artist, to have that creative expression, to live fearlessly, to follow the things that actually make you happiest, to really engage yourself with the music community and to bring so much to it. I mean, and I think your status as ambassador for something as important as the Independent Venue Week cause, which obviously has become even more important now through the pandemic. I mean, it's amazing. And didn't you have a film made about you?
Yeah, I had a short 10-minute little film made by a group of university students for their final project. Yeah, I think that was the first time which I involved in inadvertently went viral. You know, like kind of, because if you forget that was like a good couple of years before the Vice article thing. That really blew up. I mean, I only went into hiding for like 24 hours because I got so overwhelmed by people's reactions. Because that had come out literally, I think it was the day after I'd flown back from Barcelona from Primavera Sound. So you can look at it as this and say, like,
did it accelerate your fame? Did people spot you more?
Yeah, but then also I kind of, after a while, I learned, you know, like how to deal with things, but then I also learned how to ignore it to a certain extent. So, you know, like it was
pretty mean.
Well, yeah, but it's like if you know, like you've got to find a good balance for yourself. And so I learned how to I mean, it took me a little while, but I learned how to, I guess, like balance things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like I've had like the whole thing was like I don't. I mean, like I've had several petitions sometimes started up for me, and I'd be like, nope, don't want to be a part of that. Like I had, like when the BBC Six Festival came to Bristol, I had someone started up a massive petition to get me into everything on the BBC Six Festival, and I was like, no, I don't really. That was done without my permission.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah, but then like I completely forgive the person, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not like angry at the people who necessarily do it. I understand why they do it, but also at the same time, it's like
They're trying to be nice because they feel like you're an important part. I used to always say, when I lived in Bristol, I would always be like, because like I didn't just do the door at the Fleece, I would do lots of repping for bands and stuff. And I'd be like, if Big Jeff isn't at your gig, it's because there's something better going on.
Yeah, sometimes that's true. Then it also might, but then it also depends what mood I'm in as well.
Of course.
Also, like,
I was being funny to them. Like, you weren't the hottest thing in town tonight because Big Jeff wasn't here.
Yeah, like Fortune Drive sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those days. The thing is, that I mean, like, obviously Mark, who managed Idols, used to be the drummer for Fortune Drive. But I've known him even longer than that because I was at college with him.
What?
Yeah. We were both at the Access to the Academy of Contemporary Popular Music in Guildford in the same year.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
That was 20 years ago. It's really weird to think about it now.
That is crazy.
It was like, yeah, so he knew me when I was a properly sweaty, spotty, kind of awkward social person.
Isn't it funny how things go full circle?
Yeah, but then that's what I mean. Is if in like the little interactions that we can have with people, then just see where they go. Some of them, especially if like, for instance, there used to be people which I used to see night in, night out sort of thing. But yeah, he used to have to put up with me, so he's got some stories about me.
I bet.
Oh yeah, especially
I've got
like
stories about him. So if he threatens you with his stories about you, don't worry.
Oh no, trust me. Trust me, I'll probably tell you. I'll tell you anyway. I mean, like, because my favourite, because back then, my favourite lesson, and when I was there, was performance workshop. And I basically worked out individual ways how I'd upstage every single one of the students. It wouldn't necessarily be because I'm any good at necessarily anything. It was just like, right, I would like come up with like really ridiculous fancy dress costumes. So like, yeah, well, it's like but one week we had to learn how to play Marilyn Manson. You know, like kind of beautiful people, and I decided to, in the morning, kind of basically get completely dressed up with like kind of fake, with like really cheap face paint, which I brought, and like fake blood capsules, and proceeded to go all the way throughout Guildford with the back with my shaven head, and yeah, basically I got so I painted on some really horrible looking kind of crosses onto my face sort of thing, and so I was walking all the way throughout Guildford with this face paint on.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like I would just turn up and do random things.
How did you end up going to Guildford? Was it just because of that music college that's there?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like,
was it back then? There was no venue there, right?
Yeah, it was really weird. So like they'd have like live shows up once every blue moon in the university sort of thing. And I remember going to a few gigs there, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't like nothing like Bristol.
Yeah. They've got Boiler Room now, right?
Yeah, the Boiler Room's a great venue.
Really cool.
I've met Dom quite a few times who runs the Boiler Room.
Same.
And we spent actually the last night of the Independent Venue Week tour was there. Well,
good. Did you go on that whole tour?
I did about 8 dates. So I did like I went to visit a place called Hyde Park Book Club up in Leeds, which used to be a petrol station. Which is
Oh,
turned into a
I've never
vegan
actually been
cafe.
there, but it sounds amazing. Brudenell's my favourite venue up there.
I've never been there, so
Oh,
that's
like
good.
go to the forum in where did we say Tunbridge Wells, Brudenell, King Tut's. That's another one of my favourites in Glasgow. Have you been there?
No, I mean that's the thing is though I haven't done actually that much travelling within the UK. So I mean like I know there's but I can look back at it and so I did like a whole tour for Independent Venue Week, um, literally like back in January.
Yeah.
Like so I did Leeds, I did Newcastle, the Cluny for Nadine Shah. I did the Lead Mill in Sheffield.
Yeah. Oh man.
I literally walked in
My cousin
there.
went to university in Sheffield, and
Wow.
so she was 2 years older than me. So I used to go and see her at the Lead Mill, and definitely they had some student offers on the drinks there, and
Yeah,
it
I can
very well.
imagine.
Anyway, Lead Mill, that's got
Oh,
some happy memories for me.
yeah,
Cluny, very happy memories.
yeah, that's a great place. But I think my favourite venue was the Trades Club in Hebden Bridge.
Oh, I've heard so much about the
Oh
trade
man, it's beautiful.
bridge. I've
It's
not been there though.
it's such a great venue.
I mean, I will say that my favourite venue over the Louis, King Tut's, Brudenell, it has to be Moles.
Yeah, Moles were pretty good. But I think the thing is with Moles, I remember actually was it turning up really early for a 14 Drive gig at Moles there. I remember this probably shows how detailed my memory is.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
remember any of this.
I mean, like I was doing so I was on like New Deal, like a musician sort of thing at the time, and so I'd be doing like this kind of 3 day course thing down in Bournemouth, and so like I literally kind of was getting the train back, going like, I could go back to Bristol, I could get off this stop early at Bath and go and see my friends in Fortune Drive, and I remember getting down there so early that you know I kind of got to see the sound check, then got taken to the porta bus and like kind of got to have food with you guys sort of thing. But I was so nervous because I saw like this massive plate of chips and I was like, is that for me or is that for someone else?
Oh, the porter, yeah.
Yeah,
And Schwartz burgers, I always like to get Schwartz Brothers.
yeah, man. Yeah, I miss that place. I miss those times.
Okay. So what's the I I've been trying to keep tabs on what's been going on in the UK. I feel like I'm very proud of my UK friends and family for the Love Record Stores campaign. I think that's amazing. I think like from a label perspective, seeing what's been going on with the pandemic and like saving the stores because they're already suffering a lot from consolidation and distribution. And that was incredible. I think Jason Rackham and the team he put together behind that was awesome and is still going. And from a sales perspective, we're seeing still like healthy physical sales out of the UK, but not necessarily like many other places. And then lo and behold, Independent Venue Week, which has been running for a few years, right?
Yeah.
It's a couple of years now.
I think it's been running for like maybe nearly 10 years. I think. I mean, I first of all heard of it through my friend Alice, who's putting on shows at the Louis. So that would have been a good, like 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, and it seemed. I mean, how do you feel? Did the government announced a bailout package for arts venues?
I think it's a case a little bit of that of wait and see, because obviously like there's going to be places like the Royal Albert Hall are going to take quite a sum of money and stuff like that, but it's going to be interesting to see how it affects the trickle down effect. So like whether you know how it will help places like the Louisiana and like things which are important bedrocks to communities like.
Well, the grassroots venues are so important for culture. Like that's where bands and artists get to try things out. I just think about when I was working at the Fleece and I was working with when Amy Winehouse played there
Yeah.
on at the very beginning of her Back to Black tour, and I remember seeing her sound checking, and she's like texting and like singing at the same time. Incredible! I was just floored. And but then at the same time, like obviously we've been talking about idols and what independent venues has meant to them, and like in New York, there the price of real estate has gone up over and over, and I guess in some ways this venues in London have faced the same.
And in Bristol as well.
Is it?
Yeah,
So
it's been. Oh yeah, Jesus Christ! The price of the places has gone up a lot.
And venues are getting pushed out, and they can't afford to raise the rents, and so they can't afford to pay the raised rents. So I think it's a really important time post-pandemic for local governments to assess how important that culture is to bring people to that city or that town, that community. And then just obviously we've spent a lot of time talking about idols, but there's so many other bands and artists that we could talk about too. But obviously I'm now living in America, and they're building a career worldwide, and that them be starting out at the Louis and the Exchange and the Golden Lion even.
There's even like some of the other artists that you've worked with, like people like Charles Bradley, they would need somewhere, to first be able to go on the stage, whether it's like even like the old Duke or something like that.
Well, he got found by the Daptone guys doing a James Brown covers act in a pub in Bushwick, or a bar in Bushwick in New York. But yeah, totally. And that, it's a very, they're very important to our society, and we mustn't let the dark side of capitalism quash them. So I'm very supportive of the cause, and very supportive of you as an ambassador, Jeff.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So that's people like what live music's done for me. Is actually live music. I mean, I'll say this a lot, but I've said this probably quite a lot of my conversations. It's helped me understand emotions. Like I'd go to things depending on what I'm feeling. So whether it's like a band like Low, where I'm going to feel every single emotional kind of like singe kind of drained out of me, or someone like Charles Bradley, where you know that you're going to feel a spirit and that there's something which will drive you.
You feel the love with Charles.
Yeah, oh yeah, a few times. Especially like WOMAD sets, which
he got immediate, that set.
Yeah.
And I saw you, and I saw Daddy G from Massive Attack. We were all, like, can't remember if we were talking all together, but there's another British connection. And I think that was 2017 too,
Yeah, that would have been. That would have been 2000. No, that was 2015, I think.
Oh, was it?
I think that was the last time I went to WOMAD.
2016. It was 2016.
Yeah.
Because I just remember what was going on in my life then. But that set that we were both at. He got sick like right after that, and they went and visited him in the hospital in Swindon the next day.
Wow. Actually.
And that's when they realised that he had cancer, and then he had some treatment, and he went back out on the road, and then.
Yeah, but that was probably like his last UK show. Would have been WOMAD.
I think it was, yeah.
So it's like quite amazing the fact that I got photographed a few times, but like kind of hugging him.
Yeah.
Most of the time, like, wow, it does make you think about, those little things about how he can really touch people.
Yeah.
Because also on the same night, I actually had quite a major anxiety attack at that festival.
Did you?
Yeah, because I get quite bad sometimes claustrophobia, especially as also people like smoking weed around me sometimes, and it can trigger it up a bit more. Sort of thing.
Sorry about that. How do you manage that at Glastonbury?
That's the thing, is the last Glastonbury I went to was 2011, and so I've kind of replaced that with Primavera Sound.
Right.
Which is probably about the same capacity wise, but it's a bit more, I guess, music nerdy to the audience.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely got I actually think capacity is a lot less than Glastonbury. I think it's probably only half as big, but the site
Yeah.
at Glastonbury is so big. So
Yeah.
your stages are probably relatively
Also, like your camping as well. So you forget about like whereas down it's all fairly on hard ground. And
I think with Primavera, they do a really good job of, especially when it was in a little earlier in May, of being almost like the first that year.
yeah,
And you go in there, you get to see like such a spectrum of alternative artists. I
as
use
well
that
as
word
big.
grudgingly,
Yeah.
but it is that.
But also,
And go
also
on.
having the variety, so they'd have the big pop acts, and then you'd have like the really, really obscure stuff, and then also the fact that they've managed to work in as much as possible, like kind of almost like a gender balance. Sort of
Oh
thing.
yeah, no, they've done a really good job of that. Big fan of Primavera, Barcelona. I haven't been
Yeah.
to Porto. Have you been to Porto? I
No, I've never done the Porto one.
think it's a
I,
bit smaller.
I think the Porto one's about, yeah, it's quite a lot smaller because it's quite like newer, but apparently it's a lot greener
Is it?
where they have it. But yeah, I've been going to Primavera for like the past 8 years, and it has increased a lot in size. But
How many wristbands have you got there, Jeff?
well, I've got about 30.
And you can't possibly keep all of them on. So how do you
Oh, Jesus
decide?
Christ. Well, actually, my mum's actually used a whole load of my old wristbands, and she made me a waistcoat.
Really?
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I wish I brought it down. So obviously I've been living in this is my parents' flat at the moment. Um, but yeah, I had literally she'd made me a waistcoat, and she'd also made me a bag patch for a rucksack as well.
Oh,
I've
so they're
got
getting
wristbands.
used then.
Oh yeah, some of them are. Some of them are literally just collecting dust. She had to wash, like put them through the wash several times.
Do you have to take them off sometimes because they irritate your wrists?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, sometimes I'll just go like, there'll be just be points where I'll be like, right, okay, this one's got to come off, and I'll try and store them as much as possible, but I'm not very good at looking after things.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
I tend to collect and then let go.
but then sometimes it's good to do that though as well. You, like, because if you keep hold of the things which you really value, and then like it could also, I don't know, maybe find other uses for them, like decorations or something.
When I moved to America, I went with 3 boxes of stuff. No, 3 suitcases of stuff, and 3 suitcases of stuff and 3 boxes of records.
Wow, that is a lot of stuff to get rid of.
I got rid of a lot. Yeah, I did. Didn't need it.
Hmm.
And that's the other thing I've learned in the pandemic. Like, don't need stuff. You know,
Yeah,
don't really need stuff, and I don't need like living in New York. You end up eating out a lot because
yeah,
it's easier and it's expensive and it's not as healthy. Like, I don't need that stuff. You know,
no,
like this kind of very simple life. I definitely miss shows though.
yeah. I think, but then that's what's kind of brought us all together. Has been, you know, like kind of because I view gigs as like safe spaces, So it'd be like, right, okay, because you know that I've said this to Stephen Mack as well, that you know that there'd be a structure to it. You
Right.
know that the doors would be this time, support acts would usually, or like the first band would be on usually half an hour after the doors open. Then it'd be like kind of right, there'd be intermissions, there'd be breaks, sort of thing. So you can like either go to the bar or say hello to find yourself talking to random people, having discussions whether you like the first band or not, or yada yada.
How have you
Um,
replaced that in the last few months?
I've done a lot of live streaming, admittedly.
How's
Um,
that been going? What's your experience with that?
I've actually, some of it I've quite enjoyed because of it's been soundtracking my walks. So like in Bristol, like I lived in Tottenham and I had several really good parks close to me, and so I'd be finding out, looking at what's streaming at what time, and I'd be like, right, okay, I fancy playing this. So I'd be streaming everyone from like this to the Kit, Richard Thompson, through to like like 20th century media, like Century Media did a kind of takeover of more like the alternative metal stuff. Like Lyle have been doing a live stream every Friday evening from their or evening UK time from their living room, which has been really good. And so still, I mean, I think the thing which I miss more is actually the stuff which goes around with the gig.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause you still hear the music and like, obviously, like the other weekend, you know, like they were playing sets from Glastonbury sort of thing on the TV, of which I watched Bowie's set and I literally had a lump in my throat the entire time.
I watched that one too.
Yeah, I was there in the audience.
Were you?
Yeah, I was 17. That was my
No
first Glastonbury
way.
with David Bowie. Yeah.
In the year 2000?
Yeah.
That's incredible. I had an amazing weekend like that weekend watching Glastonbury. We literally, my friends here, I did use a VPN so I could access the iPlayer.
That's fair enough. Well, you like, what you can.
Yeah, exactly. I've paid my taxes in the UK for years. And we started on Thursday night, and basically every day was like a festival day, and we were like, right, what are we going to watch next? But you could pick what sets you wanted to watch.
Yeah.
Some of the highlights were, I loved Pulp in '95.
Yep.
My first Glastonbury was 2005, so
wow.
That like I was 5 years after you.
Yeah.
And I was 19, and I just moved to Bristol.
But to be honest, you were younger than me, so like in 2000, you probably would have been like what?
I would have been 14.
Yeah, exactly. You probably wouldn't have been. Yeah, you would have been definitely probably too young.
It was definitely too young. I always wanted to go, but it was exactly the same time as like school exams, and I grew up in Cumbria, so it was like too far. I wouldn't have. My parents wouldn't have taken me or anything. So yeah, but I loved Pulp. It was. Did you watch the Oasis one?
No, yeah, I did. I watched a little bit of it, but it did bring back some memories of going, yeah, when they were good, because they were, you know, for a period they were very good. I mean, like
I mean that they'd only had one record out at that point, and they were so.
They only even had the debut album out, but then had 2 singles, like 3
really?
singles. Yeah.
I thought they had definitely maybe out, but not.
No, that was like literally about 5 months afterwards, I think.
Really?
3 months afterwards.
People were losing their mind.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. They weren't a very dynamic live band. Like really good players, but it wasn't like what a show.
No, they weren't. They were never that way, were they? They were just like, you know, we're gonna do something done where it's like, for instance, you watch something like David Bowie, where it was like definitely a show, and it was like kind of reimagining some of his back catalogue, or like Janelle Monáe, for instance.
Yeah,
that's in the audience.
I was at that Janelle show. It was really amazing at the time.
Yeah. I think I remember bumping into you like halfway through that set, I think.
Your memory is insane.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed watching back, because I remember I was there last year and I went to see that kind of what you were talking about with like music and emotions, and when you don't like when the way you're feeling doesn't match the music. Like the Chemical Brothers set from headlining the other stage last year at Glastonbury. I went to watch that thinking that that's what I wanted, and it wasn't what I wanted, and I like left and went to see something else. But then when I watched that set back last weekend and just had a dance party in the living room, it was so good. But
it's about having the right environment. I mean, one set which they wish that they'd streamed on TV would have been Iggy and the Stooges.
I remember that.
Yeah. Like, that was a wild show. I
remember my friend Rob's girlfriend getting up on stage and I
remember Rob. I was on the barrier, so I was watching all the carnage happening.
What were you doing? Oh, you were down the front.
Yeah, of course.
That was amazing. And that was Björk was that same year on the stage. That was amazing. Yeah.
I got to see 2 of my heroes headlining on the Friday, Saturday night. Because Björk's been a hero of mine for quite some time, and I've never seen her play live, and so that was the first time I'd seen her.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd seen her too.
And that was a particularly intense performance. I think it's partly also that she had certain things going wrong. But I remember that also that at the same time it was like, this is still freaking amazing because you're watching her being like really tense and really kind of properly angry. And then obviously like Iggy and the Stooges, that 10,000 person stage invasion was just, I've never seen that many people on stage at once.
It was brilliant, wasn't it?
It was like, I was watching it kind of like semi laughing because of like, I mean, I'm dyspraxic, so I can't actually jump over the barriers, otherwise I would have gone and joined in. Because I think otherwise you probably would have had a lot more stage invasions from me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree with you. That was my one thing. I was like, oh man, the shows that they must have recorded in these archives must be insane. Like, I'd love to be able to just pick them out. I mean, the BBC do a really good job of that, I think.
Yeah, they do, and I think that's where you know, especially when it comes to covering like a festival like that, you've got to have, you know, you've got to try and cover like a wide spectrum of stuff, and you can't. And it's like, so you've got to have like the Lady Gaga's, the big pop stuff, and then also you've got to have some of the smaller stuff. I mean, I was watching, like, having my breakfast watching Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, you know, from 2013. Right. I know, but it's like
the year that they played immediately before Blur.
No, that was Mumford and Sons. Yeah, 2013. I mean, like,
I saw them both those times.
Yeah, I mean that one before Blur, that literally terrified me in the most best possible ways. When people like, when I say that some things slowly kind of like scare me in a good way, people think that that's like a negative thing.
Right. But it's just that emotional thing again, isn't it? Yeah. It's feeling the full spectrum of emotions that we have, and how music can bring that out of you is really interesting.
Especially with the intensity, like that was the first time I'd seen Nick Cave was 2009, and I remember seeing that was the year Neil Young played, and so I was actually on both the footage for Blur and Neil Young.
Yeah,
literally my face did pop up a couple of times.
Jeff, I gotta go because I gotta go to work.
Lovely to see you, Zena.
But before I go, I have to ask you: are there any unsigned bands that I should be checking out?
Oh god, this could probably take a million years to be honest with you. But there's some great stuff coming out of Bristol, especially like my friends who run Wormfeed have just set up their label, and they're putting out a compilation of Bristol alternative jazz bands.
Oh, wicked!
There's some really good stuff on there, like Snazback. Back. Run Logan Run, who've been doing like some really kind of quite cutting edge kind of stuff, really. So I'll definitely give them a nod towards them. I'm not sure when the record's coming out, because it was supposed to be July, but they've had issues with the pressing plant, they've decided to move it back to later in the year, and the coronavirus sort of thing.
It's really difficult, all that.
It is difficult, but then like it also makes you realise that when it does come out, that we've got to value it. We've got to value what we've got and actually treasure these sorts of moments.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. Well, thanks for asking me to join you for a chat today.
Oh, thank you for doing it, Zena. It's been freaking amazing. It's been too long.
It has. Yeah. Stay in touch.
Yeah, I'll try my best, Zena. Look after yourself.